In court, fighting for my great-grandchildren, my daughter-in-law called me an unstable danger. She'd spent 3 years poisoning their minds against me, but then, I saw it. A small bottle, and a terrifying truth clicked into place. I just smiled, telling the judge I had evidence that would change everything. If you've ever fought for family, you know this feeling. Like, share. And let us know where you're listening from. The stale air of the courtroom felt heavy, pressing down on my 80-year-old shoulders. My name is Eleanor Vance, but everyone calls me Ellie. Today, I was here for the fight of my life. Not for money, not for property, but for the 2 small souls who were the last piece of my son left in this world. Noah and Sarah. My great-grandchildren. Across the aisle, Victoria Hayes, my daughter-in-law, sat perfectly composed, her blonde hair impeccably styled, a serene mask on her face. To look at her, you would think she was the picture of maternal concern. But I knew better. I saw the glint in her eyes, the subtle smirk that played at the corners of her lips when she thought no one was watching. She was accusing me of being an unstable danger to my great-grandchildren. The words hung in the air, a cruel, nonsensical accusation. Victoria's lawyer, a man in a sharp, expensive-looking suit with a dismissive air, stood up. He presented what he called damning documentation against me. He spoke of my age, my supposedly failing health, and then moved to specific incidents. He detailed how I had once let Noah spill juice on the new rug, a minor accident quickly cleaned up. He twisted my loving attempts to teach Sarah to bake cookies into a tale of endangering the child with kitchen equipment. Each accusation was a pinprick, designed to erode my credibility, to paint me as a forgetful, incompetent old woman. My heart ached, a deep, raw pain that had been festering for 3 long years. 3 years since my son, Daniel Vance, Victoria's husband, died in that senseless car accident. Daniel was the glue that held our family together. After he was gone, Victoria changed. Slowly, subtly at first. Then, with increasing aggression, she began to push me out of Noah and Sarah's lives. My weekly visits became bi-weekly, then monthly, always with some excuse. The children were busy. They were sick. Victoria had plans. Phone calls went unanswered. Gifts were returned. It felt like a deliberate campaign to erase me, to sever the last connection I had to my son. I wanted to shout, to rail against the injustice, but my throat felt tight. The judge, a younger man named Albright, was listening intently, his face unreadable. He wasn't what I had expected. I had pictured an older, more understanding type, someone who might see through Victoria's facade. This man was sharp, precise, and I felt utterly outmatched. I had no lawyer, just myself and my desperate love for those children. As Victoria's lawyer droned on about my supposed inadequacies, Victoria reached into her large, designer handbag for a tissue. In her haste, a small, amber-colored bottle tumbled out, rolling across the floor before coming to rest near my feet. My eyes, though 80 years old, were still sharp. I recognized the label instantly. Ipecac syrup. A cold wave of dread washed over me, chilling me to the bone. Ipecac syrup. I knew that name. From my nursing days, decades ago, Ipecac was used to induce vomiting. A sickening suspicion, a terrifying thought, began to form in my mind, pushing aside the fear and frustration. Noah and Sarah's frequent illnesses, the unexplained bouts of vomiting, the numerous doctor and hospital visits Victoria always talked about with such dramatic flair. She had loved the attention, the sympathy, the role of the worried mother, Munchausen by proxy. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. Could it be? Could Victoria be deliberately making our children sick for attention? The thought was monstrous, unthinkable, yet the pieces clicked into place with a horrifying precision. Her composure, her accusations, her relentless effort to isolate me from the children, preventing me from witnessing these incidents firsthand. My blood ran cold. Suddenly, the courtroom air felt charged, crackling with an energy no one else could perceive. I felt a surge of strength, a desperate fire ignite within me. I was no longer a cornered old woman, I was a lioness protecting her cubs. "Your Honor," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, cutting through the lawyer's monotonous monologue. He stopped, mid-sentence, looking annoyed. Victoria's head snapped towards me, her serene mask momentarily cracking into a flicker of surprise, then irritation. "Mrs. Vance, do you have something to add?" "Yes, Your Honor, I do," I stated, looking directly at Victoria, who now wore a look of growing unease. Victoria Hayes is painting a picture of me as unstable, but the truth is, I believe she is the one who poses a danger to Noah and Sarah. A very serious danger. The lawyer sputtered, about to object, but I pressed on. "I have just realized something. Something that explains a lot about the children's health and Victoria's behavior. I believe I have evidence. Evidence that will change everything in this case." A hush fell over the courtroom. Victoria's face was white, her hands clenching in her lap. The lawyer looked utterly bewildered. Judge Albright leaned forward, his expression now one of intense curiosity. "What kind of evidence?" "Mrs. Vance, I cannot disclose it fully yet, Your Honor," I said, my gaze never leaving Victoria's terrified eyes, "but it relates to the children's repeated illnesses and Victoria's role in them. I need time to gather my facts and, frankly, to secure legal counsel, which I now see is absolutely necessary." Judge Albright considered my words for a long moment. He looked from me to Victoria, then to her flustered lawyer. "Given the seriousness of Mrs. Vance's claims, I am inclined to grant her request. This hearing is postponed for 1 week. Mrs. Vance, I strongly advise you to find an attorney immediately. You have a week to prepare." As the gavel came down, sealing the postponement, Victoria lunged towards me, her composure completely shattered. Her lawyer grabbed her arm, pulling her back, but not before her furious whisper reached my ears, sharp and venomous. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life, old woman." I didn't flinch. I just looked at her, a silent promise in my eyes. The biggest mistake was hers. I walked out of that courtroom, my legs feeling a little stronger, my mind clearer than it had been in years. The battle was far from over. It had only just begun. I was going home, and I was going to find a way to protect Noah and Sarah from their own mother, no matter the cost. The walk home from the courthouse felt like a journey through 2 different worlds. One moment, I was just Ellie, an old woman facing a bitter fight. The next, I was a woman with a chilling revelation, a terrible suspicion that had transformed everything. My life had been one of caring, of nurturing. I'd raised a wonderful son, Daniel. I'd volunteered at the local hospice for years, offering comfort and compassion. To be painted as an unstable monster, a danger to my own flesh and blood, was a searing insult. Yet, that pain now fueled a cold, hard determination. As I unlocked my front door, the quiet of my home was a stark contrast to the shouting match I felt brewing inside me. My mind raced back to countless small moments that now clicked into place like macabre puzzle pieces. I remembered a conversation with Noah, my 9-year-old great-grandson, just a few months ago. He had been playing with his toy cars, quiet for a moment. Then he looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes. "Grandma Ellie?" he'd whispered. "Mommy says we shouldn't talk about the hospital visits. She says it's our special secret." My heart had twinged then, sensing something was off. But I hadn't pushed. I just hugged him tight, telling him he could always tell me anything. Now, that whispered secret echoed, a haunting premonition of what was to come. I went straight to my study, a small, cozy room filled with books and memories. From a locked drawer, I pulled out a worn, leather-bound notebook. It wasn't a diary. It was my meticulous record. For the past 3 years, ever since Daniel died and Victoria's behavior grew increasingly erratic, I had jotted down every strange bruise I noticed on Noah or Sarah, every unexplained illness, every vague complaint Victoria made about their health. Dates, times, symptoms, Victoria's reactions. It was all there. A testament to a grandmother's quiet alarm. Flipping through the pages, my fingers traced entries describing Noah's sudden vomiting episodes, Sarah's mysterious rashes that disappeared as quickly as they appeared, the fever spikes that would send Victoria rushing them to the emergency room, only for the children to be perfectly fine by the time I called to check on them. It was a pattern, a disturbing, undeniable pattern. The ipecac, the memory of the bottle tumbling from Victoria's bag, returned with sickening clarity. I needed a second opinion, a professional one. I picked up the phone and dialed the number I knew by heart. "Martha," I said, my voice barely above a whisper when she answered. "I need to talk to you. Something terrible is happening." Martha, my oldest friend and a retired nurse, listened patiently as I recounted the courtroom drama, ending with the ipecac syrup and my terrifying theory. There was a pause on her end, a heavy silence that spoke volumes. "Ellie," she finally said, her voice grave, "ipecac syrup is a potent emetic. It induces vomiting. If what you're suspecting is true, Munchausen by proxy is a cruel, insidious form of child abuse. It's when a caregiver, usually the mother, fakes or induces illness in a child for attention or sympathy. The symptoms you've noted, the frequent hospital visits, the secrecy. It all fits. You're not being paranoid, Ellie." Her confirmation, though terrifying, solidified my resolve. There was one more place I might find answers, a place I had deliberately avoided out of grief and respect. Daniel's old laptop. It sat on a shelf in the back of his study, untouched since the day he died. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as I carefully picked it up. Plugging it in, I felt a pang of sadness. This was Daniel's world, his thoughts, his work. With a deep breath, I entered his password, a simple one he'd always used, and accessed his email. My hands trembled as I scrolled through his inbox. Amidst work emails and family messages, I found it. A series of alarming correspondences between Daniel and a doctor, Emily Carter at Children's Memorial Hospital. My heart began to pound. Daniel had been concerned. He had expressed his worries about Noah's unusually frequent stomach bugs and mystery fevers, the constant hospital visits that never seemed to yield a diagnosis. He had written, "I'm starting to worry about Victoria's explanation for Noah's health. It just doesn't add up." The last email from Dr. Carter confirmed a meeting. "Daniel, I've cleared my schedule for Tuesday at 10 a.m. Let's discuss your concerns about Noah in more detail. Please bring any documentation you have." Tuesday. Daniel had scheduled this meeting just 2 days before his car accident. The connection hit me like a physical blow. Just as the full weight of this discovery settled over me, my doorbell rang. I jumped, my heart still racing. It was Ethan Cross, Daniel's best friend, and a family lawyer. His face was etched with concern. "Martha called me." "Ellie," he said, stepping inside. "She said you were in court, and that you have—" I led him to the kitchen table, the laptop still open, the notebook spread out. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Ethan," I began, my voice clear despite the turmoil inside. "Victoria is not who we think she is. I believe she is making Noah and Sarah sick. I believe she has Munchausen by proxy." I laid out everything. The ipecac, Noah's whispered secret, the pattern in my notebook, and then, the laptop. I pointed to Daniel's emails, the desperate pleas for answers, the scheduled meeting with Dr. Carter. Ethan read through the correspondence, his face growing paler with each sentence. His jaw tightened, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "My God, Ellie," he finally murmured, running a hand through his hair. "This is monstrous." "It's all here, Ethan," I insisted, gesturing to the evidence. Daniel knew something was wrong. He was trying to get help. Ethan closed the laptop, his expression grim and resolute. He looked at me, a lawyer's focus sharpening in his eyes. "Ellie, you have my help. We need to get the children's full medical records from Children's Memorial, immediately. I'll make some calls first thing tomorrow morning. This is not just a custody battle anymore. This is about protecting those children, and possibly even uncovering the truth about Daniel's death." As Ethan left, promising to start work first thing, I was left alone with a chilling, horrifying thought. Daniel's accident. The police report had been vague, attributing it to reckless driving on a winding road. But what if it wasn't an accident? What if Daniel's growing suspicions about Victoria, his scheduled meeting with Dr. Carter, had put him in danger? The possibility that Victoria might have not only harmed her children, but also murdered. My son settled over me like a shroud, cold and inescapable. The tension in the air was thick as Ethan and I walked into Dr. Emily Carter's office at Children's Memorial Hospital the next morning. My heart hammered against my ribs, a nervous rhythm of hope and dread. Dr. Carter, a kind-faced woman with intelligent eyes, greeted us warmly. She remembered Daniel immediately. Daniel was a concerned father, she began, her voice soft but firm. He was deeply worried about Noah's health. He felt something wasn't right with the frequency and nature of his illnesses. She then pulled out a thick stack of papers, Noah and Sarah's medical records. What she revealed was horrifying. In the past 2 years alone, she stated, Noah has had 17 emergency room visits, Sarah, 14. Almost all of them for vague symptoms like nausea, vomiting, dizziness, or sudden, inexplicable rashes. And in most cases, by the time tests were run or specialists consulted, the symptoms had either resolved completely or were mild enough to be dismissed. She flipped through pages, pointing to specific entries. It was exactly as I had documented in my stolen notebook. Only worse. Far worse. Dr. Carter then brought up images on her computer screen. We also have some photographic evidence, she explained, her voice grave. The first image showed Noah's small arm, mottled with bruises that seemed to form an unnatural pattern, almost like finger marks, but not quite. Then Sarah, her delicate skin displaying perfectly symmetrical rashes on both arms, or sometimes both legs, looking almost too perfect, too deliberate. These kinds of unexplained, often symmetrical, marks are red flags, Dr. Carter continued. They are classic indicators we look for in cases of suspected Munchausen by proxy, where a caregiver might be causing the physical symptoms themselves. My stomach churned, seeing the proof in black and white, or rather, in stark, undeniable color. Dr. Carter, Ethan interjected, his voice tight with controlled anger. Daniel had an appointment with you, scheduled the day after he died. Was that to discuss these very concerns? She nodded slowly, her eyes sad. Yes. Daniel was increasingly suspicious. He had explicitly stated he wanted to discuss his fears that Victoria might be causing Noah's symptoms. He was very clear about that. The confirmation hit me hard, twisting the knife of grief and suspicion deeper. Daniel had been on the verge of exposing Victoria, and then, he was gone. Despite Victoria's public image as a devoted, grief-stricken mother, constantly involved in charity work and lauded in local social circles, Dr. Carter didn't hesitate. I will testify, she affirmed, her gaze unwavering. My primary concern is the welfare of these children. I cannot ignore this. A small glimmer of hope sparked within me. We had an ally, a professional who understood the gravity of the situation. As we were leaving Dr. Carter's office, preparing to navigate the labyrinthine hospital corridors, a young nurse, Chloe, stepped out of a nearby patient room. She caught my eye, a nervous urgency in her expression. She quickly approached me, lowering her voice. Mrs. Vance, I know you're Noah Vance's great-grandmother. Right? She whispered, glancing nervously around. I nodded, my heart quickening. Yes, I am. I saw something. Chloe continued, her voice barely audible. During Noah's last stay, a few weeks ago, Mrs. Hayes, Victoria, she was alone with him. I saw her administer an unclear liquid to him, just before his vomiting started up again. It wasn't his prescribed medication. It looked thicker. She saw me, and quickly hid the bottle. She told me it was just a special electrolyte drink, but it didn't look right. Chloe's eyes were wide, her concern genuine. I felt like I should say something. Something about her just always felt off. Ethan, ever the lawyer, immediately took charge. Chloe, Would you be willing to give a formal statement? This is incredibly important. She hesitated for a moment, clearly scared, but then nodded firmly. Yes, for Noah. I will. We quickly exchanged contact information, promising to follow up. Chloe's statement, a direct eyewitness account, was a crucial piece of the puzzle. It was the concrete evidence we desperately needed to connect Victoria to the deliberate act of harming Noah. As we drove away from the hospital, the city traffic a blur outside the window, Ethan turned to me, his expression serious. Ellie, this is good. Very good. But this won't be easy. Cases of Munchausen by proxy are notoriously difficult to prove. Victoria has cultivated a public persona as a loving, grieving mother. The legal process will be slow, and we need irrefutable evidence. We need to be prepared for a fight. I knew he was right. But with Dr. Carter and now Chloe on our side, I felt a strength I hadn't possessed in years. We pulled up to my house, the setting sun casting long shadows across the lawn. As I fumbled with my keys, a sense of unease washed over me. The front door was slightly ajar. My blood ran cold. Ethan immediately went on alert. Stay behind me, Ellie, he commanded, pushing the door open carefully. The sight that greeted us was devastating. My cozy, orderly home was in chaos. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, books scattered. It was a ransacking, a brutal invasion. My gaze went immediately to the study, the drawer where I kept my notebook. Now empty. Daniel's laptop. Gone. From the shelf. My heart sank. She knew. Victoria knew I was investigating. Just then, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Victoria's number. I looked at Ethan, then answered, putting it on speaker. Ellie, darling. Victoria's voice purred, dripping with false sweetness, completely devoid of the panic or anger she'd shown in court. It was a chilling performance. Did you enjoy your little outing today? I hope you found what you were looking for. There was a pause, a pregnant silence designed to let her words sink in. Such a shame about your things. Careless. Really. To leave such important documents lying around. My breath hitched. She was taunting me. She had done this. And, by the way, Victoria continued, her voice turning icy, Noah's not feeling well again. Such a sensitive boy. Needs another hospitalization, I think. What a nuisance. The implication hung heavy in the air. She was using Noah, my great-grandson, to punish me, to send a message. She was hurting him, even as she spoke. You won't get away with this, Victoria, I whispered, my voice shaking with rage. Her laugh was brittle, devoid of warmth. Oh, but I already have, old woman. You've made a powerful enemy. The line went dead. I looked at Ethan, my face surely pale with shock and fury. The ransacked house, the stolen evidence, Victoria's cruel call. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a war, and Noah was her weapon. The chaos of my ransacked home felt like a physical violation. Ethan, ever practical, spent the night, ensuring my safety and making arrangements for security cameras to be installed first thing in the morning. His presence was a small comfort amidst the overwhelming dread. The next morning, as the new cameras were being mounted, a knock came at the door. It was Officer Lopez, a sharp, observant detective with a no-nonsense demeanor, arriving to investigate the break-in. As she surveyed the damage, her eyes narrowed. Mrs. Vance, she said, her voice quiet. I knew your son, Daniel. We were childhood friends. Actually, his accident never sat right with me. Something felt off. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. It was a small, unspoken validation of my darkest fear. Officer Lopez, with a detective's keen instinct, quickly started digging. Within hours, she uncovered something deeply unsettling. Victoria Hayes is strategic, Mrs. Vance, she informed me, her expression grim. It seems she has connections. Specifically, Judge Albright's brother-in-law is a prominent lawyer who has done some work for Victoria's family in the past. It's not outright corruption, but it certainly suggests a potential for judicial bias in her favor. The news hit me hard. Victoria wasn't just cruel. She was cunning, playing the system, and potentially had the judge swayed before we even had a chance. Just as the weight of this revelation settled, Martha, my dearest friend, walked in, a determined glint in her eye. She had heard about the ransacking and was not about to sit by idly. "Ellie," she declared, "I can't let Victoria get away with this. I'm going to volunteer at Noah's school. As an invisible old lady, I can keep an eye on him, listen to what the children say, maybe even talk to the teachers. No one will suspect a thing." Martha, with her kind face and unassuming presence, was the perfect spy. Another ally, another ray of hope. Ethan, meanwhile, had been busy with his legal inquiries. He returned with a crucial piece of information. "Ellie, I found it," he announced, holding up a printout. Victoria purchased ipecac syrup from a local pharmacy just last month. She claimed it was for a science demonstration for Noah's class. A science demonstration. The audacity, the calculated cruelty, was breathtaking. This was no accident. This was premeditated. My phone buzzed, vibrating against the kitchen counter. It was a text from Chloe, the young nurse. My heart leaped into my throat. Urgent. "Noah is back in the ER. Victoria just went out for coffee." The words were a stark, cold punch to the gut. Victoria was hurting him again, and using his illness to mock me. "Officer Lopez," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. "Noah's in the ER. Victoria's not even there." Officer Lopez's eyes hardened. "Get in the car, Mrs. Vance. We're going to the hospital. We need to get a statement from Noah before Victoria can coach him or harm him further." She turned to Ethan. "Can you meet us there with a portable recording device? We need to get this on record." The drive to Children's Memorial was a blur of flashing lights and my own racing thoughts. Officer Lopez, her mind sharp and tactical, quickly formulated a plan. "When we get there, I'll cause a diversion, create some kind of incident in the waiting area," she explained. "It'll draw attention, especially from Victoria when she returns. That will give you a window, Ellie. You go straight to Noah's room. Talk to him. Ask him about his special medicine. We need him to tell us what Victoria is doing." My heart hammered. This was risky, but it was our best, perhaps only, chance. We burst into the bustling emergency room. Just as planned, Officer Lopez staged a loud, theatrical argument with a fictional, disrespectful visitor at the reception desk, drawing the attention of staff and anyone nearby. Victoria, strolling back in from her coffee run, her expression annoyed at the commotion, was instantly distracted, caught up in the drama. I slipped past, my elderly frame moving with a surprising agility fueled by adrenaline. I found Noah's room. He was lying in bed, pale and weak, a small IV drip attached to his arm. My heart broke seeing him so vulnerable. "Noah, sweetie," I whispered, rushing to his side, gently stroking his forehead. "Grandma Ellie is here." He opened his eyes, clouded with pain, but a flicker of recognition sparked in them. "Grandma Ellie," he murmured, his voice faint. "Noah, honey," I pressed, keeping my voice soft, calm. He nodded weakly. "Mommy gave me special medicine. It makes my tummy hurt. It makes me throw up." He looked around, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to a barely audible whisper. "She said it's our secret, that I shouldn't tell anyone." My blood ran cold. It was happening, just as I suspected. "And why did Mommy give you extra medicine, Noah?" I asked, pushing gently, knowing this was critical. He looked at me, his eyes large and sad. Because you're trying to take me and Sarah away. Mommy said if I get sick, you won't be able to." The words, so innocent, yet so damning, hung in the air. Behind me, concealed by the open door, Ethan stood. His hand, I noticed, was holding a small recording device, its tiny red light blinking steadily. Officer Lopez, having seamlessly transitioned from her diversion, was now standing guard near the door, a calm, professional expression on her face. Noah's confession, raw and unfiltered, was now captured. The truth was out. Victoria's manipulative cruelty, exposed by her own child. If you've been on the edge of your seat, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The fight for Noah and Sarah takes a terrifying turn, a race against time where every second counts. Stick with us for this emotional roller coaster. Like, share, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss a single moment of what happens next. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of frantic activity, a blur of phone calls, urgent meetings, and the constant thrum of fear for Noah and Sarah. Officer Lopez, now fully invested, worked tirelessly, gathering official medical records and securing the results of blood tests taken from Noah during his recent hospital stay. Ethan, a man possessed, pored over every detail, crafting a legal strategy that felt both desperate and brilliant. Martha, true to her word, became a fixture at Noah's school, reporting back that he was still absent, a stark confirmation that Victoria was isolating him, presumably to continue her abuse. The clock was ticking, and with each passing hour, the knot of dread in my stomach tightened. Then, on the morning just before our rescheduled court hearing, my phone rang before the sun had even fully risen. It was Chloe, her voice hushed and urgent, tinged with panic. "Missus Vance, it's Sarah," she whispered. She was admitted overnight. Respiratory distress. She's in a private room. And Victoria, she hasn't left her side. She's being extremely possessive, refusing anyone but select staff near Sarah. My heart plummeted. Not Noah, now Sarah. Victoria was escalating. Chloe continued, her voice dropping even lower. "I just overheard Victoria on the phone, talking to someone. She was making plans to leave. To her mother's house in Arizona. She said after the hearing tomorrow night, she'd be gone with the children." A cold dread washed over me. Victoria wasn't just planning to run, she was waiting for the hearing, perhaps hoping to use it as a smokescreen to make her escape seem less suspicious. She was planning to vanish with my great-grandchildren. I immediately called Ethan, my voice trembling with a desperate urgency. "Ethan, we can't wait until tomorrow. We have to act today. Victoria is planning to flee with Sarah to Arizona after the hearing. Sarah's in the hospital, respiratory distress. We have to get them now." Ethan's voice was grim. "Ellie, we don't have court approval for an immediate removal. It's incredibly difficult to get an emergency placement order without a formal hearing." "Then find a way," I insisted, my voice rising. "Sarah is in danger now. Noah is gone from school. If we wait, she'll be gone." Ethan knew the stakes. He didn't argue further. "I'm on it, Ellie. I'll race to secure an emergency order. You stay put." The next few hours were an agonizing wait. My phone buzzed constantly. Officer Lopez called, her voice grave. "Ellie, we got the test results from Noah's blood work, positive for ipecac alkaloids, and my investigation into Victoria's pharmacy purchases found multiple instances of her buying ipecac syrup from different pharmacies, under slightly varied names, over the past few months. It's clear she's been stockpiling it." The confirmation of ipecac in Noah's system was horrifying, yet it was also the irrefutable evidence we needed. Ethan called back, his voice tight with frustration. Judge Albright refused an immediate hearing. "Ellie." He cited proper procedure and the need for due process. Said our evidence, while compelling, wasn't enough for an ex parte emergency motion without Victoria present. My blood boiled. Albright's bias, or perhaps just his strict adherence to protocol, was putting Sarah's life at risk. "But," Ethan continued, "I'm not giving up. I'm going to try to get an emergency petition heard by Judge Davis. She's a no-nonsense judge, but she sometimes hears these matters if the urgency is truly dire." Another agonizing hour passed. Then, Ethan's call came again, a breathless urgency in his voice. "Ellie, we got it." Judge Davis agreed to a 15-minute emergency hearing. "We have to be there, now." We raced to the courthouse, a flurry of hurried steps and whispered instructions. Just as we were about to enter Judge Davis's chambers, my phone vibrated again. A frantic text from Chloe. "Victoria is leaving the hospital with Sarah, against medical advice. She's pushing Sarah out in a wheelchair right now. My blood ran cold. Victoria wasn't waiting for the hearing. She was making her move now. My mind reeled. Sarah, already in respiratory distress, being discharged against medical advice. Victoria was effectively kidnapping her, putting her life in even greater peril. We burst into Judge Davis's chambers, our faces etched with desperation. Ethan, barely coherent, explained the urgency, Chloe's text message prominently displayed on my phone. Judge Davis, a stern but fair woman, listened intently, her eyes narrowing as she absorbed the gravity of the situation. She reviewed the documents Ethan presented. The medical records, Noah's taped confession, Officer Lopez's findings about the Ipecac purchases, and Noah's blood test, and the sworn statement from Dr. 17, Carter. Her decision was swift and firm. Based on the evidence presented, specifically the confirmed presence of Ipecac in Noah Vance's system, the expert medical opinion from Dr. Carter, and the immediate threat of flight with a child currently in respiratory distress, I am granting a temporary emergency placement and protective order. Her voice resonated with authority. Officer Lopez, you are hereby authorized to intervene immediately and take temporary custody of Noah and Sarah Vance, ensuring their safety and medical care. There was no time to spare. As soon as Judge Davis's gavel struck, we were out of the courthouse, into Officer Lopez's squad car, lights flashing and siren wailing. The urgency was palpable, a desperate race against time. We sped towards Children's Memorial, my heart pounding in my chest. What if we were too late? What if Victoria had already driven away? The thought was unbearable. As we pulled into the hospital parking lot, a black SUV, Victoria's vehicle, was just pulling out of a spot, its engine revving. "There she is!" I screamed, pointing. Officer Lopez, with incredible speed and precision, swerved the patrol car, blocking Victoria's exit. The SUV screeched to a halt, the driver's side door flying open. Victoria, her face a mask of fury and shock, glared at us. In the back seat, barely visible through the tinted window, I saw her, little Sarah, frail and pale, slumped against a car seat, her chest rising and falling shallowly. We had made it, just in time. The black SUV screeched to a halt, blocked by Officer Lopez's patrol car. Victoria erupted from her vehicle, her face a contorted mask of fury. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, her carefully constructed composure finally crumbling. "You have no right!" I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "You're not taking those children anywhere, Victoria. It's over." Officer Lopez, calm and authoritative, stepped in, flashing her badge. "Victoria Hayes, you are under arrest for suspicion of child endangerment and assault. You have the right to remain silent." Her words cut through Victoria's protests. Victoria fought, lashing out with a venomous glare. But Officer Lopez and another arriving officer quickly subdued her. The click of the handcuffs was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. While Victoria was being taken away, I rushed to the SUV. Sarah, frail and pale, was huddled in the back seat, her eyes wide with fright and confusion. I gently unbuckled her, pulling her into my arms. "It's okay, sweet pea," I murmured, stroking her hair. "Grandma Ellie is here. You're safe now." My gaze met Victoria's as she was led past, defiant even in restraints. "Where is Noah?" I demanded, my voice raw with desperation. Victoria just sneered, a chilling, bitter triumph in her eyes. "You're too late, old woman. He's already with my mother. You'll never find him." A cold wave of panic washed over me. Officer Lopez, overhearing Victoria's cruel taunt, immediately radioed her precinct. "We have a missing child. Noah Vance. Dispatch officers to Rebecca Hayes' known addresses, including her mother's residence. Priority 1. As I held Sarah close, a tiny voice piped up. "Mommy gave Noah more special medicine. She said it was because you were coming." My heart ached for my brave little great-granddaughter, who had endured so much. Within minutes, Sarah was back inside the hospital, surrounded by doctors. The pediatrician, already informed by Dr. Carter, confirmed our worst fears. Sarah's respiratory distress was caused by a combination of ipecac and a sedative. Victoria had given her a concoction designed to induce severe symptoms and keep her subdued. Ethan, who had arrived moments after the apprehension, was on the phone, his face grim. He hung up. Victoria's mother, Rebecca, has indeed packed suitcases for Arizona, he confirmed, but there's no sign of Noah at her house or any other address we know. The search for Noah intensified, a frantic race against time. Sarah, now somewhat stabilized and breathing easier, looked up at me, her eyes still clouded but with a spark of clarity. "Grandma Ellie," she whispered, her voice tiny. "Noah has a secret hiding spot. When Mommy makes him take the special medicine, he goes there. Behind the Christmas boxes in the garage." My breath hitched. "The garage," I repeated, a surge of desperate hope. I immediately relayed Sarah's words to Officer Lopez. More officers were dispatched, this time to Victoria's house. Minutes later, the call came. Officers had found him, Noah, hidden behind dusty Christmas boxes in the garage, just as Sarah had said. He was dehydrated and weak, but alive. He was terrified, whimpering about how Victoria had given him a double dose of medicine and told him I was coming to take him and Sarah away forever. The police found another half-empty bottle of ipecac syrup next to him. Both children were stabilized at the hospital, receiving the care they desperately needed. Social Services, after reviewing the overwhelming evidence and hearing Dr. Carter's testimony, approved my temporary custody. Ethan, his exhaustion evident but a smile of relief on his face, returned with more good news. Judge Albright has recused himself from the case, citing a conflict of interest due to his brother-in-law's connection to Victoria. Judge Davis will be overseeing the formal hearing. It was a victory, small but significant, ensuring a fair process. The formal hearing, though still necessary, was a formality compared to the emergency action we had taken. Armed with the medical confirmations, Noah's recorded confession, Sarah's eyewitness account, Dr. Carter's expert testimony, Chloe's statement, and Officer Lopez's meticulous investigation, the court swiftly granted me full legal custody of Noah and Sarah. Victoria was denied bail, facing serious charges of child abuse, endangerment, and attempted kidnapping. The court also ordered ongoing support services for the children, ensuring their long-term recovery. In a pivotal moment, Ethan also confirmed that, based on Daniel's alarming emails to Dr. Carter and Victoria's proven pattern of abuse, the investigation into Daniel's car accident would be officially reopened. Justice, for Daniel, might finally be within reach. 3 days later, Noah and Sarah, still fragile but visibly brighter, walked into my home. Martha was there, her eyes welling with tears of relief. Ethan helped carry their few belongings, and Officer Lopez, now a trusted friend, stood by, a reassuring presence. My quiet home, once filled with grief and solitude, was now alive with the gentle chatter of children, the promise of a new beginning. Later that evening, after baths and warm milk, I sat with Noah and Sarah, tucked into their new beds. "Sweethearts," I began gently. "Mommy, Victoria. She has a very bad sickness in her mind. It made her do things that were wrong, things that hurt you." I held their small hands, looking into their confused faces. "But I want you to know, with all my heart, that none of this was ever your fault. You are good, strong, brave children, and you are safe now. Always." As they drifted off to sleep, I sat by their bedside, watching their peaceful faces. My own life had been turned upside down, transformed from a quiet retirement to the full-time guardianship of 2 traumatized children. But looking at Noah and Sarah, I knew this was my purpose. This was my new chapter. We would build a home here, brick by brick, moment by moment, a home where trauma could be replaced by trust, fear by safety, and the emptiness of betrayal by the overflowing, unwavering power of love.